All right, everyone, let's call to order the regular council meeting here on Monday, April 3rd. We are at the W.C. O'Neill Arena Complex in the council chambers. This meeting, in addition to being live in person, will be also streamed through Facebook on the Town of St. Air's Facebook page, also through Zoom webinar. If anyone has any questions throughout the course of the meeting, I know sometimes conversations in particular on Facebook can happen underneath, but if you do have a question, the way to have it answered is actually to email pnopper@townofstandrews.ca. Let's get into the recording of attendance. So that's one's very easy. All members of council are in attendance. So thank you very much, council. And I also wanted to recognize before we get into the agenda that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Beskoto-Magadi people. Approver of the agenda. Could I have a mover to approve the agenda as circulated? I've got Councillor Neal and seconded by Councillor Hurdle. Any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, you will note there is a closed session item this evening to be aware. And now we're going to, at this point, call the question. All in favor of approving this agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. That is everybody. That agenda has been carried. Any conflict of interest for this evening? Got Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Worship. Just to perceive possible conflict of interest for actually my motion, so I'll just ask somebody else to bring that one forward for, I believe it's BTHC 230205 with the tourism accommodation levy.
Perfect.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. We'll be looking for one of the three ward councillors to read that when Councillor Hurdle recused himself. So plenty of notice. Okay. Any other disclosures? Seeing none. All right. Now we are into presentations, and I do know that we have the commanding officer of the Fundy Sea Cadet program. So I'd like to welcome Aaron Bennett, and the stage is his, and I believe he's being joined actually as well. So the floor is yours. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us tonight. As the Mayor said, my name is Lieutenant Navy Aaron Bennett. I'm the commanding officer of 352 Royal Canadian Sea Cadet Corps here in St. Andrews. And I'd like to invite my senior cadet to introduce herself.
My name is Chief Petty Officer 2nd Class Shaw Parr, or as less of a mouthful, my name is Sadie Parr.
Thank you, Sadie. So we really wanted to, again, thank you for the opportunity to come in tonight. It has been some time. I don't know the last time actually that Sea Cadets gave a presentation to council, certainly a number of years, certainly pre-COVID, maybe like a lot of organizations. So great to kind of get some face time back to talk about one of the organizations here in our town. So the first thing I'm going to do is get Paul to skip to the next slide, and it'll actually be a short video about some activities that Sea Cadets can be involved in. And I know I was a Sea Cadet myself in the 1990s, and certainly I can say that I certainly did a number of those activities in the video, and I don't know about yourself, Chief, if you have done a few of those yourself over the years.
All but the deployment, sir, and that's mostly due to COVID.
Excellent, excellent. So a little bit about the cadet program and the Sea Cadet program. So the cadet program is a nationally funded program which helps youth develop a wide variety of skills such as building confidence, teaching leadership, promoting community mindedness, and developing habits of a healthy, active lifestyle. We offer unique experiences, as the video kind of illustrated, in seamanship and sailing, including life on board Canada's naval vessels. This is a really key bullet up here, is that there's absolutely no fees for youth to take part in our program nationally or here in St. Andrews. So it's a completely barrier-free program, which I think is a major asset to a community, any community, and especially our beautiful community in St. Andrews. The expectation throughout the school year from September to June is about one night per month and around about one activity per month as well on average. I would say in normal kind of pre-COVID times. We're still kind of getting back to our regular schedule. So this is a great picture and kind of illustrating some Sea Cadets in their PFDs, their personal flotation devices. And of course, as Sea Cadets, we do focus in on the nautical aspects of our environment around us. So sailing, each year we do get to take our Sea Cadets at least once throughout the year to do a 2-day sail weekend to learn how to sail small sailboats. We typically take our cadets to a sail center on the St. John River up around Fredericton. Doing seamanship activity. That kind of thing happens at cadet training centers in the summertime, but also happens here locally. Both here, we teach them on a Wednesday night, rope work skills and other knot tying skills, but as well as taking advantage of our own local activities around us. For instance, in the past, we've had opportunities to have go aboard the vessel down at the biological station, or we've even had the U.S. Coast Guard come over and visit us at our own local wharf. So all kinds of things like that from the seamanship aspect. Then, of course, powerboating and other nautical activities. Sea Cadets, of course, those aspects are unique to our program, but there is other cadet programs, Air Cadets and Army Cadets, that don't do those particular activities, which is why, if you want to be involved in the nautical aspects, you join the Sea Cadet program in St. Andrews. Some other cadet activities. Not all of these are done here locally, but as we grow our cadet unit here in St. Andrews, hopefully we'll be able to offer the full suite of activities throughout the coming years. But certainly band, biathlon, we have done both of those activities locally. Marksmanship, our cadet unit happens to be particularly interested in our air rifle marksmanship program. The Duke of Edinburgh program is offered in lots of cadet units around the country, and many other things. So Sea Cadets can look forward to being immersed into a nautical environment, as I've talked about, taking part in challenging and fun activities, such as firing an air rifle or going sailing. The very unique thing about the cadet program is it's a progressive program. So we really build on fundamental skills from year one in the program and then advance those skills throughout future years. And then eventually, they become leaders in our cadet unit like Sadie Shahpar is here next to me. And as I said, as you kind of grow through the program, you become a leader, and certainly really in an ideal cadet environment, it is really the senior cadets in our cadet units that are actually leading the program, and we're really just here as mentors, as adult staff, kind of guiding these fine young people kind of into the program and helping them mentor their own junior cadets. So again, it's many things, and becoming an instructor, leading in summer training activities, participating in unique regional and international opportunities. I know one of the opportunities that Chief Shahpar has applied for this summer is the opportunity to go on an international exchange this year, either to the United States or to the United Kingdom. So we're still waiting on the outcome of that application, but we'll see. She could see herself gone away for 3 or 4 weeks on a fully paid international exchange by the cadet program. So I think I'm getting ahead of myself in the slides, because this slide here mentions those international exchanges, but there's also additional opportunities that many of our cadets in St. Andrews have done before, sailing aboard a Royal Canadian Naval or Coast Guard vessel, aboard summer tall ships. That program has happened, and we've had quite a few cadets go to the tall ship program that's usually offered in British Columbia over the years. Summer jobs. I can speak from my own personal opportunity. The cadet program was really helped me pay my own way through university. I worked as a Sea Cadet, as a staff cadet in the summer, and then carried on, and that was my summer job for many years. So yeah, certainly and then the scholarship and high school credit program, which I think the chief is hoping to take a part of both of those things. To talk a little bit about the structure of our organization, the Canadian Cadet Movement is a partnership between the Department of National Defence, the D&D, and the Canadian Forces, and our league partners. So there's 3 leagues in Canada: the Navy League of Canada, the Army Cadet League of Canada, and the Air Cadet League of Canada. And those 3 leagues, in partnership with National Defence, help guide our program, as well as, and this is why we put it in red, is our local community support. We really can absolutely not have cadet programs across the country in various communities without the partnerships of communities, and certainly the town council and the town of St. Andrews is an excellent partner in this organization. We've been in business here in the community now for 15 years, so we greatly rely on the town. Certainly, you house us every week. We use the arena every Wednesday night, so that local community support is pretty critical. We have a couple of other local community supporters as well. The Kiwanis Club sponsors us annually, as well as the Royal Canadian Legion. So at this point, I'm going to stop talking because you've heard enough from me, and I'm going to turn the word over to Sadie to talk a little bit from her perspective.
I joined cadets, one moment here, when I was 12. I showed up on my first night in a suit, and I have not looked back since. Now, showing up to my first night in a suit was not required, but I'm not going to lie, it made me feel pretty cool. And cadets has continued to foster that sense of self-confidence, even to this day. And some might say mine is a little bit inflated, but I think it's well placed. As the mayor knows, I work in town, and so unfortunately I have not been able to take advantage of as many of our summer employment opportunities, but the employment opportunity, my bad, not the employment, the opportunities I have been able to take part of for our summer experience have been absolutely wonderful. I spent 2 weeks, my first year in cadets, at summer camp, and I spent 3 weeks on my second year, and I will still, that would be close to 4 years ago now, and I still quote my experiences nearly weekly. This program has brought so much joy into my life. It's unreal. And as a lot of people know, 2 years ago my house burnt down. Cadets gave me an experience to not have to dwell on all of the things that are going on at home. It gave me a chance to escape, and actually one of the reasons that we were able to save as much as we were able to was because of cadets. I was in a meeting when it happened, and one of the officers was able to contact the fire department in town faster than I was able to normally, and that's a little bit of an extenuating circumstance, but there's opportunities like that all over cadets, and I've yet to hear a person who've made it through the program who doesn't have a similar story about how much cadets has helped them in any way possible, and that's really all I have to say on the matter.
Thank you, Chief. And I think that, that firsthand experience, I can kind of tell my own firsthand experience, but I think the Chief's done a great job at that. So thank you for your experience and telling your story. So just the very last slide is I just wanted to put up, mainly for the viewers at home, our contact information. So it's there on the screen. We meet here at the W.C. O'Neill Arena every Wednesday night from September to June at 6:30 p.m. Phone number and email is up there. And one thing that I wanted to kind of point out as a note in your diary for council members and certainly yourself, Mayor, is Wednesday, May the 17th is going to be our annual ceremonial review. That's our year-end review where we celebrate our cadets and hand out some awards for the year and put on a couple of demonstrations. So certainly there'll be an official invite coming to the mayor and council, but I wanted to point that out. That's also a public event, so anyone can come in that night and kind of join us to celebrate our cadets for the year. So with that, I just wanted to kind of push it back to you guys and ask if you had any questions.
Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate the awareness on the cadets program, and we are very fortunate to have a partnership in place to help make it possible. And it's great to hear that both the Kiwanis and the local Legion, of course, are big parts of that as well. A quick question for you is, I'm just wondering, about the numbers with cadets. You see, recruitment for things like maybe the armed forces or even first responders like the RCMP are actually tougher and tougher maybe sometimes to get. Is the interest in cadets, the next generation, is it just as high, or is there challenges with that? And I'm not just talking maybe St. Andrews specific or Charlotte County specific, but overall as well.
Yeah, no, first of all, I'll make just a very large distinction. So certainly the National Cadet Organization is in no way, shape, or form a feeder organization for the Department of National Defense. So, we just want to kind of put that out there to kind of make sure that everyone is well aware of that, because that's a little bit of an old myth that some people think that, if you're Sadie joining cadet at 12 years old, we're going to, ship you off to war at age 21. That couldn't be farther from the truth. We give those opportunities that we talked about here tonight. But to answer your more direct question, certainly the COVID environment and operating in a virtual environment for over 2 years was really tough on the program, both here locally as well as nationally. But I'm really happy to say that we're trending upwards. Provincially in New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island, we're at about 30% increase in cadet numbers from September to now. Here locally, we've actually grown about 50%. So we ended the year last year at only 12 cadets, and we actually have 21 on the books right now. So ideally, optimally, I'd like to grow the unit to 30 or beyond is where I'd be happy here in St. Andrews.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions from any member of council? Councillor Harlan.
Thanks, Aaron. So are the cadets that are involved in our program, are they all from St. Andrews, or are they from Charlotte County?
You can answer that one. You know the answer.
Sure. Actually, they are from all around Charlotte County. We do have a strong core here in St. Andrews. We have, of our senior cadets, about 66% of us are from St. Andrews, so about 2/3 of us. And for our junior cadets, it's about half. We have people from all over Charlotte County that come in.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
I do have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. First of all, Chief, I spent 5 years in cadets, Army cadets, 4 6-week summer camps, and as soon as I was old enough to join the Army, I did so, and I left Newfoundland. And I haven't turned back, and enjoyed most moments of it, I guess. I do have a couple of questions about the Corps and about how you guys work, though. You say you work out of the WC O'Neill Arena here, eh? Mm-hmm. But we're not your title sponsor?
No, so nationally, as I mentioned, all cadet units across the country have to partner with one of our national leagues. So in our case, the Navy League of Canada, we have to be represented here locally. However, there are always those additional sponsors locally. So, if we wanted to continue to build that partnership with the town of St. Andrews, and we already have a fine foundation, taking you on as an official partner at some point in the future, we could certainly kind of have those discussions.
I ask that because in our hometown, we had 3 very strong cadet corps, Air Cadet, Sea Cadet, and Army Cadets, and they were all sponsored by like a school board or something like that. And usually whoever housed you was your title sponsor. I'm kind of shocked that you're here in this arena and we're not the title sponsor. Do we charge you for your facility use?
No, we've come to a great arrangement with the town. Actually, we don't pay any fees to use the arena on an ongoing basis. We've actually set up a bit of a barter system actually to both benefits. So we use some of our funds each year to purchase equipment that is mutually beneficial for the cadet unit as well as the arena. Things like the coat racks that are out here, down here, and as well as upstairs. We've purchased other things like whiteboards. We just recently purchased some new tablecloths like this for arena use. So things like that we can use on an ongoing basis that we can share with the arena users as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. And I do know about the Chief's confidence. In fact, she's also the New Brunswick pumpkin pie eating champion at Kingsbury Garden, was it?
2 years in a row.
2 years in a row, and she did it on her lunch break. So I know not to mess with her. So thank you very much for both being here. We really appreciate it. All right, next up is the approval of minutes for the previous meeting. There is 3 sets of minutes. I'll quickly just do a check-in. Did anyone have any adjustments to any of the minutes? Otherwise, I will go through them quickly. Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I will go through these in quick order. So the first one is the minutes of the 230306 public hearing of objections to bylaw number 23-01 on Monday, March 6, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Can I have a mover for those minutes? We've got Councillor Harland and seconded by Councillor Heenan. All in favor of approving those minutes, please signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? That is nobody. Those are carried. Minutes of the 230306 regular council meeting on Monday, March 6, 2023 at 7 p.m. Once again, I'll be looking for a mover. I've got Councillor Blanchard and seconded by Councillor Bennett. All in favor of approving those minutes, please signify by saying aye. Thank you. Those are carried. And the last set is the minutes of the 230320 regular council meeting on Monday, March 20th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. I'll be looking for a mover. I've got Deputy Mayor Akaji and seconded by Councillor Heenan. All in favor of approving those minutes, please signify by saying aye. That is everybody. Those minutes have been carried. So we will get into communications. Just bear with me as I slide through. So we did get communication from Trudy Flynn, who is the chair of the Fibromyalgia Association Canada. And May 12, 2023 is the 31st anniversary of Fibromyalgia Awareness Day, and it's recognized with the World Health Organization. She's contacting us to see if we will light up St. Andrews in purple, so Town Hall, in recognition of the 2 to 4% of Canadians living with fibromyalgia. Basically what they're looking for is if we would be from the evening of May 12th to the dawn of May 13th willing to light up Town Hall. So on that note, I personally have no challenge with that for the awareness. Does anyone feel contrary? I don't think we need a formal motion for that one, so it's more for communication if someone's wondering why it is lit up in that color. And then the second communication that I have would be the proclamation of International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. So inside your council package on page 24, you do have the request. I will read, if it does pass, the proclamation. But I guess to start, I would say that Council of the Town of St. Andrews proclaim May 17th, 2023 as the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. Could I have a mover for that particular motion? I've got Councillor Harlan and seconded by Councillor Hurdle. Any discussion on this one? The proclamation will explain it obviously in more detail. Seeing none, all in favor of that proclamation, please signify by saying aye. And that is everybody, so that has passed. So this is the Town of St. Andrews resolution on the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. Whereas the Canadian Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms recognizes that no one can be discriminated against based on sexual orientation or gender identity or expression. Whereas Canada is a society open to everyone, including lesbian, gay, bisexual, and trans people, and to all other people who identify with sexual diversity and the multiplicity of gender identities and expressions. Whereas despite recent efforts towards greater inclusion of the LGBTQ plus people, homophobia and transphobia are still present in society. Whereas May 17th is the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, is celebrated as such in many countries and the result of the Quebec-based initiative promoted by the Foundation Emergence starting in 2003. Whereas there is reason to support the efforts of the Foundation Emergence in holding this day, now therefore be it resolved, the Town of St. Andrews hereby proclaims May 17th, 2023 as the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia and recognizes this day as such. Now therefore, I, Brad Henderson, Mayor of the Town of St. Andrews, support the proclamation of International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, which will be signed today, April 3rd, 2023. At witness whereof I have set my hand and caused the seal of mayoralty of the Town of St. Andrews to be affixed hereto. So we will, with the clerk, make sure that we sign and file that proclamation. So thank you very much, Council. That will wrap up communication, and we're going to go right over to staff reports, and I'll pass it over to our CAO, Mr. Chris Spear, to take us through his report.
Thank you, Worship. Just as a follow-up to you, Worship, I do know that Charlotte County Pride is holding weekend celebrations. I want to say June 17th. I thought it was a month later, so that'll be coming up in some communications later. With the time change a couple of weeks behind us and a touch of Sheila's brush in mid-March, we know that spring is coming soon. The following report touches on the key points of the agenda tonight, as well as ongoing initiatives of the town of St. Andrews. For council, there are a few items on the agenda tonight that are for discussion purposes in order to provide direction to staff on how to proceed. The first item is a proposed heritage bylaw. Following the Heritage Conservation Act of the Province of New Brunswick, one of the first steps is to appoint a heritage board who will go through a prescribed consultation process and provide feedback to council. It took several months to find sufficient volunteers to fill these positions, and now staff needs direction from council if you'd like to appoint the board and allow it to begin their work. Heritage preservation is a defining characteristic of the town, and many residents would like to see improved tools to maintain these assets within the downtown area. Staff is also suggesting we update our unsightly and dangerous premises bylaw to include Bayside and Shamcook. The regulations have always been in place by the province, but by including them within our own, we will be able to more easily address any concerns that may come up that fall under the categories listed in the Local Governance Act. By next council meeting, staff will prepare an in-depth analysis of the significance of the additional debt required to finalize the wharf project. Council will need to reflect if they want to take on such a large task and the financial concerns that go along with it. Then, if the funding all falls in order, we need to begin the design and planning phases. Council will be getting together in 3 weeks along with senior staff to go through a facilitated strategy session that will center our focus and agenda over the next few years. Although it should be reviewed annually, it is a fantastic tool to coordinate the expectation of council and the community with the resources available to meet those initiatives. One of the projects that we have taken on is to update the vehicular bylaw. Although it has gone through some amendments over the years, there has not been a holistic review of it for more than 10 years. The clerk prepared documentation and staged an open house that was held on March 22nd that shows some of the proposals as well as some of the suggestions that have come forward from the public. We'll be doing it again on Wednesday, April the 12th at 6 p.m. for those that were unable to make it the first session. In addition, we are preparing surveys and are always open to direct communication from the community. As part of the reform process, additional funds have been distributed from the provincial government's Canada Community Building Fund, which was previously the gas tax fund. Our share is approximately $33,800. For the last 5 years, we have been getting about $135,000 per year from this allotment. Although we can choose a special project for the money, if it fits within the fund's mandate, it would be my recommendation to include it in the larger pool of projects they have already allotted for it. Staff will add it to the agenda for next meeting to get direction from council and provide you an opportunity to contemplate other potential projects. Administration. It has taken a few months, but the town is about to acquire Bayside Community Hall legally. Council needs to determine the next steps on day-to-day management. Councillor Weir has been part of a group that has been looking after the hall for several years and may still be interested in providing those services. However, Council would have to get into a management agreement with this committee and formalize the arrangement. For the past several years, we've been using the Sentinel alerting system to send voicemails, emails, and texts to communicate quickly with local residents. Unexpectedly, we received a notice from the provider that they'll be ceasing services at the end of May. Staff have been reviewing 2 to 3 options of other service providers and will provide an update to council at our next meeting in April. This was an unexpected cost and may require your authorization to go over budget, as the new systems are a bit more expensive than previous. However, the total cost will be well under $5,000. It is going to be a busy spring and summer in assisting new employees, as senior staff will be mentoring the new operations and asset manager, as well as continue to provide guidance to the manager of recreation. We really appreciate all of the individuals that have given Mr. Hanselpacker time to allow him to assess the community's needs and to begin to formulate a strategy for the recreation master plan for our region. In addition to council business, we have been very busy with administrative matters, such as recruiting summer staff, preparing for the water bills, dealing with various legal issues, and assessing the training and professional development needs of staff. We have also made the federal business Development Bank aware that they still had an interest in Cornelia Street and advised them that they may want to remove it. This was a holdover from when the subdivision was originally constructed, and for the town, there were liability concerns in having a federal institution have ownership over something they weren't even sure or weren't even aware existed. I am happy to see the return of Fire Chief Kevin Terrio in late March after suffering an injury. His return was much quicker than expected, and we're glad he's on board. We thank Jimmy Craig for stepping in to help him out in his absence. All employers are experiencing a scarce marketplace for labor, as there's been many opportunities for folks both locally and throughout Canada. In an effort to recruit needed workers, we've been involved in the job fairs in St. Stephen, but also hosting an event here in May at the arena. We are just starting to get it organized and will post on social media for both potential workers and employers who may be interested in attending. Services. We have been getting inquiries about the spring yard cleanup services. Although the snow is mostly melted in town, we are still set up for winter in the yard with snow piles around and not quite ready to accept yard debris. On April the 11th, so this coming, week from today, we'll begin the sale of leaf bags with collection beginning on April 17th, and the town yard will start accepting household limbs and brush on the same date. Public Works also installed LED lights throughout the town facilities as we continue to work towards lowering our carbon footprint. The Manager of Recreation, as shown in his report, is spearheading the organization of Canada Day. We are grateful to Teresa Bevington for showing him the ropes and giving him advice. With July 1st falling on Saturday this year, we hope to expand events throughout the weekend. He has also been actively meeting with the community to assess the needs and resources available in order to put together the framework for a recreation master plan. Another sure sign of spring is that the youth center is able to open up and outdoor basketball courts and users are able to access the skateboard park. Members are also grateful for some of the green space out front to hold activities when the weather allows. The Manager of Recreation is also working occasionally at the facility to get a better understanding of the current uses, initiatives, and create new activities that the youth may want. In conclusion, all of us are guilty of jumping the gun, hoping we won't see any more snow after March. But inevitably, Mother Nature always provides a couple of more snowstorms to remind us who is in charge. That said, the community is certainly opening up, looking busier on the weekends, and we are seeing more residents outside and exploring our trails. Paddle Fest is just around the corner, and the farmers market will open up in no time in late May. Our staff will use the month of April to transition from winter as we clean up our own facilities, put out benches and trash cans, and prepare our own recreational facilities for use. Take the time to enjoy the good weather when available and let us know of any suggestions that could make the experience better.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spear. Appreciate that. As well, I noticed that we have before us from the Assistant Treasurer, Andrew Lord, a financial summary. Is there anything you'd like to highlight at this time? I do note that the difference of the budget surplus is only $4,000, so pretty spot on there, right?
Yeah, Your Worship, and frankly, it's only 2 months in, so as long as the snow budget hasn't getting beaten all to pieces, we're pretty good. So probably be at the end of the first quarter, April, before we start to get a good idea of what the year's going to look like.
Makes sense. Thank you very much. Council, any questions on anything related to the staff reports or the financials? Councillor Harlan.
Thanks, Chris. I just have one question. So the leaf collection, that people in town in the old St. Andrews put their leaves out, their bags of leaves out at the front of their yards to be collected starting April 17th, right?
Correct.
So is that going to include Bayside and Shamrock?
I guess I'm guilty of assuming not, because it was the same old, so maybe by next meeting we'll have a look at it. To be perfectly honest, there's so many miles of road out there, it'd be a big task, but certainly you're part of our community now, and I apologize, we just got set up based on last year's stuff, the last few years, and didn't even think about it. So we'll review that and see what we can do.
Great.
Perfect. And just for clarity, though, on that follow-up on that is when it comes to Public Works, is that funded just by the old municipality or the new as well? Because that's who picks this up, I guess, just for the whole conversation, I guess.
And that would be correct, that it's the Public Works as part of their budget, which isn't a part of the tax that is received from there. You've already received The 41 cents goes to the federal government, or sorry, the provincial government to provide services. But having said that, we might be able to work out a dump location or something if people are interested, I guess, and that'll be the first thing to determine if people are interested.
The joys of partial reform. We're just, yeah, exactly. We're going to just have to work through all this stuff, right? Okay. Any other questions?
Your worship, if I may.
Absolutely.
Just to follow up, though, I guess I'd ask the ward councillors to kind of check with your neighbors and things. The only reason I say that, in town, as you know, there's small houses and small lots, and there's nowhere to put leaves. For those that live in the rural areas, there's tend to be a little bit more room, so maybe find out even if it's a service that they'll take on, because probably the best scenario would be we'd set up a dumpster or a truck out somewhere that they'd have to deliver them anyway, is what I'm thinking. But just make sure it's a service that people really want before we go through the preparation, if you
And I
could.
guess a follow-up on that as well is, are they allowed to burn the leaves in Shamcook Bayside? In the town of St. Andrews, you're not, right? So that's another factor.
I'd never recommend people burning leaves.
No, but
You're right.
Yeah.
They're definitely illegal to burn it in St. Andrews.
Yeah.
We're
So
not
there's
allowed
no, I don't
outdoor
believe there's a
fires.
bylaw that would prohibit that in Shamcook Bayside either. So another factor in the whole conversation. Oh. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a burn ban, there's a burn ban, there's not. Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. All right, any other questions? Okay, could I have a motion to accept the staff reports and financial report as presented? I've got Councillor Heenan and seconded by Councillor Hurdle. All in favor of approving the reports, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. The staff reports have been accepted. We're now getting into the introduction, consideration, and passing of bylaws and motions. At this point, I will pass it over to our Deputy Mayor, Kate Akagi, for Finance and Administration.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. My first one is FA 230411, and it's 2023 Town of St. Andrews Capital Budget Amendment Request. And the background is this: with the escalating cost of capital projects and changing needs, staff is recommending to Council that Council make the following amendments to the 2023 capital budget. Asphalting. That the widening of Prince of Wales be deferred but 1 year until the vehicular bylaw is approved and federal funding is finalized. This would save the town $160,000. 2, water treatment plant. The pipe replacement project of $26,500 is delayed so that we can purchase 2 water pumps that are part of the water distribution system. Please see the attached background report for more detail. And the motion is this: that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the following amendments to the 2023 capital budget. 1, general capital. The widening of Prince of Wales is deferred. And 2, utility capital, that the replacement of pipes costing $26,500 is deferred so 2 water pumps for $38,000 can be purchased. And I so move this, Your Worship.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Seconder for that motion. And that's Councillor Harland. We'll open up for discussion. A reminder that, again, that we've had a few tenders that we've awarded. This was staff's recommendation in order to keep us on budget. Any other? I'll call the question. All in favor of approving this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That is everybody. That motion has been carried. I believe that was your only straight-up motion for
Yes,
today,
it's just
Deputy Mayor?
the one that the staff are going to talk on.
Perfect. So it is the discussion related to the Charlotte County Archives and Sunbury Shores funding request. We had presentations at the last regular council meeting. We said that we'd bring it back. In summary, both organizations were looking for, I guess you could say, over $7,000, I believe, would be the safe assumption for both. It's right before us here. Let me just grab up to it. And the-
7,000 each, Your Worship.
Correct. So, and the total budget for that particular item was $17,500, and I believe we spent about, I want to say, $14,000?
Your Worship, that's correct. We've got $3,500
About
left.
$3,500 left. So basically, the decision before you, and they're very, nothing against the request themselves, very worthy request for consideration. But if you were to approve one or both of them, you are over budget on that particular item, and it will just show up as over budget till the end of the year, assuming another category comes in under. At the end, it rolls up to a number, but it is over budget. I will say that this is some learning for all of us. I do think that moving forward on the community grant request, we should put a limit on it, just because if it's only $17,500, we know we're going to get about 20 organizations asking for money. And in fairness to people that are applying, I didn't really see it jump out to be specific on an amount. And if we want it to be spread out through the community, we might want to cap it. So, Council, I'm looking for some direction from you on what you think we should do. One solution that, I don't know if you want to put a staff recommendation in, but I think, go ahead, would you like to share what we talked
like
about?
I said, we have limited funds, and I guess there's two ways to look at this. We could either grant each organization, say, $1,000 each, which is only seed funding, we realize, but it's all we have within budget because of the late nature of it. Or possibly because of the Sunbury Shores, where it's a capital, and I know they like to do it right away, but it might be more reasonable to wait until the fall, and then maybe we can look at partnering with them on a larger amount for next year's budget. But certainly it's up to council. If you want to grant them both, staff could go looking for other avenues of funding. But it's certainly, in the past, for anything over $5,000, we used to ask that they have it submitted for the budget process because it was a significant contribution out of the budget.
I'd agree. Normally, we would say it's part of the annual budget process, but this year, in fairness to the organizations, there really was no annual budget, or there was no, I guess you could say, public budget process, and a lot of people around this table obviously had no influence on it either. So a little bit of a one-off here as well, unfortunately. So council, staff's recommendation would be to stay within the budget, award both organizations $1,000 in this case, keeps us on budget, but yet shows that these organizations are very deserving. I know if you're the Charlotte County Archives, it's still a gap because it was looking for students, and I don't know what their other revenue source would be. And for Sunbury Shores, I know that this is just part of the request of what they're hoping to achieve as far as capital renovations at the art gallery, essentially. Council, what's your pleasure? Councilor Hurdle, thank you.
That silence that somebody had to fill. Thank you, Worship. I agree with the recommendations that I see here. I was going to suggest that there be almost a deadline to apply, because I don't think anybody of us want to be in the situation where we have to say no to any of these organizations that obviously do a lot of good for the community. So, but when you're saying, like, previously it was 5,000, or you'd have to submit it to the budgetary process, I think that makes sense, and I think that's where we should be looking for future asks, so that organizations would have to look at their year and present it to us before we do our budget, and that would help us accomplish what we need to.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So it sounds like you are supporting the staff recommendation. Councilor Heenan?
Yes, Your Worship and Council, I support the staff recommendation, and I also support the idea that we need to cap our amount that can be asked for in the next budget, because it's very unfair if we have 20 requests and only have $17,000. It's not really that, because every organization does well. Every organization in the town is deserving. So I feel strongly that we need to cap it at some monetary value that's reasonable with the $17,500 constriction. Thank you, Your Worship.
Perfect. And is it safe to, we got kind of a
Well, I was going
mover
to
and a
say,
seconder?
did I hear? Yeah.
I guess for formality for the motion, you so it's from the Community Grant Assistance Program. We have a motion for $1,000 to both Sunbury Shores and to the Charlotte County Archives. Is that formal enough for minutes? Perfect. So we've got a mover and a seconder is what I heard. The only thing that I'd wonder, Council, to put the condition on it that the funds are dispersed when the project's a go. So if Sunbury Shores does not do the renovation, then the funds do not go ahead. We have awarded funds in the past, and unfortunately projects haven't gone ahead. So we've got to be a little cognizant of that as well. Councillor Blanchard, we've got a mover, a seconder, so I'll open up to debate or conversation.
Sure.
Floor is
just,
yours.
I guess just on a question then, and maybe I missed, I was just reading through a bit here. With the recommendation, because the motion, what I just heard was $1,000 for each. But I didn't hear was also part of the recommendation was a future discussion on potentially partnering more with Sunbury Shores as a cultural, I think what they call them, cultural community centers or something to that effect, that we're in, I think, 9 other communities. Are we including that in the motion as well, or is that something separate we can look at around budget time?
I think I don't think we need a motion for that. We can just take that, staff could take that as a note for further. I think we're still waiting on information to find out what other municipalities contribute to those as well, so I don't think we've got that information before us.
There's some here as part of the council
as part of the
package, I guess, yeah, in
package.
terms of what other communities were doing. Maybe not 100%, but it did seem like it was fairly, there was a fair bit of detail there in terms of, in general terms, what they've contributed, whether it's direct or indirect, I guess. A lot of them tend to own the building and the the organization either had a lower rental or some kind of a reduced rental, right? And the community or the community rather picked up some of the other expenses, fees, things like that. So and in some cases they actually did provide direct support as well. So I think I would like, if we're putting that motion forward, whether we're doing a motion to say partner with them now, maybe communicate to them that there's an interest, if there is an interest, there certainly is for me, to perhaps partner with Sunbury Shores and do a bit more in the future, or like I said, even later on in the fall as they move forward on the project.
So let's put that in the council registers for budget time then. Does that make sense to have it as a placeholder, and then we'll know that it's there? Councillor Harlan.
I am in agreement with the recommendations for the $1,000 for each of the organizations, but I would also respectfully make a request for the archives to consider making a formal presentation to our two other municipalities. I think that they need to understand how critical the archives is and the role that the archives plays in protecting their history in addition to St. Andrews. And I think I hope that our other two municipalities will step up to the plate and provide some additional support as well.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harlan. That's a very valid point. Any other councillors have anything to add in? Okay, we got a mover and a seconder. I'll call the question. All in favor of approving that motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. That's everybody. Thank you very much. At this point, we are moving ahead to public safety, which is Councillor Neal, but there is no motion before us. It is a discussion on the draft bylaw number 23, which is respecting dangerous and unsightly premises. The staff report did kind of highlight the gist of what we would like to discuss. This particular bylaw, we actually can't change the wording on it. It is currently what's in place in Shamcook Bayside. It would just be to, I guess, give St. Andrews the authority to basically be the ones that maintain it. So basically there is a timeline of bringing it forward for council's consideration. Is there any concern or any reason why we wouldn't bring this forward? Would that be a quick enough summary? I think that's the direction you're looking for, correct? Councillor Ware.
Yeah, I just have one question, and as I read through it, I probably should have known it, but there's no definition of the word premises. And my building lot happens to be 110 acres, and probably there's a pile of sawdust somewhere on it. And, I think the province is remiss in not doing that. And the other thing that came to mind, again, it was my personal thing, is dangerous situation. And I think of the look-off at Simpson's Hill, which I assume most of you have been up on. Happens to be on my property. I've talked to New Brunswick Trails about it, the issue of liability insurance, the whole thing. They refuse to acknowledge hardly that I own the property. You know, I've put up private property signs. I don't put up no trespassing signs. It's a beautiful spot. I love it there, and I understand why people go there. But it is dangerous there. There's no question about it. I caught a couple of young people tenting there overnight, right out on the rock. So, you know, I've checked with my insurance company. I think I'm covered, but it's just an awkward situation. And I think there's probably people out in Shamcook with the same problem with the mountains and the hills and that type of thing, that we could inadvertently be dragged into a situation where it was not intentional, but some lawyer gets a bright idea and away they go.
There's no question when people enter your land, even though they're not invited, there is a sense of liability there for sure. But on your point, maybe the definition, but the other thing is,
Your Worship?
the teeth of it also aren't very clear
No,
sometimes.
yeah, well, I just want to touch on a couple of points. So the first thing about your pile of sawdust, even in town, for it comes unsightly, it tends to be driven by complaints. As they say, what could be ugly to one person is art to another's. So that's a little harder. But the only time we'll take action if there's unsafe, which has to be followed by an engineer's or building inspector report. So that's for buildings, and tends to be if there are only people living in them. So old sheds, all of us probably have old sheds that we put together with the cheapest wood and maybe had too many beers in us or whatever on a Saturday night, but whatever the case, that, but it tends to be anything that's going to put the public at risk. As far as, it only has to do with structures, like I understand your concerns about Simpson Hill and stuff, but even in town, we can put up warnings like that's why in the wharf we had to put lines and things because there's really no bylaws that, the home or landowners have to be responsible for the safety, especially in a public space, for those that are using it. To a certain extent, those using Simpson Hill are going to, have to assume some of that risk on their own, and tenting on the edge of a rock probably isn't the smartest thing anyone would ever do. But back to the bylaw, for those that are in the new wards that are concerned that the town will be sending out bylaw enforcement officers to look for issues, we will not. If we get calls from neighbors that have concerns, then we have an obligation to go out. But again, if you read the bylaw, and this will go to public consultation and stuff, and again, we have to pull it right out of the Local Governments Act, Part 13, and put it on our own letterhead, get the mayor and clerk to sign it, and that's the bylaw. So there's a very limited definition of what actually is covered. And so sometimes you have to use other bylaws to catch different types of scenarios. And believe us, we've had items in town that have been fairly serious natures, and they've still taken months and months to resolve, even in the bylaw, through proper enforcement and reports. So it's, as long as people, so people with storage and stuff behind their homes, we likely won't be coming out unless you're like on the front yard of your next door neighbors or something. Oh, there you go.
Especially that much acreage. That's almost the size of St. Andrews, the historic. But just on that note, then, I also know that the Grand Banana Island is also looking with the Regional Service Commission of actually having them be the ones to administer your unsightly and dangerous property. So the RSC themselves is looking to maybe be a body that can take that service on. So before any agreement was ever signed, staff would bring that forward to us. But this is just, again, part of, right now the province is doing it. It's about bringing it back in here for everybody around this table to be the one to administer it. So is there any concern with this coming forward, I guess, is what we're looking for? Okay, I'm seeing none. So Yep.
Sorry, Worship, I just want to follow up on your comment about the RSC. They'll be going under the direction of staff still on that, so even if they take it over, it's just under our direction to say we've gotten complaints about ABC. Can you please review and provide feedback?
Yeah.
Because even to chase this within the Act, there's a point where council has to make a motion in order for staff to pursue it. First couple of steps is we send letters saying we think you're in violation, can you clean up? But if it comes to the point of a legal action, we have to come to council for a motion anyway.
It's a lengthy process.
So just to understand.
Perfect, thank you. Well, I think I've got direction from council on bringing that forward, so thank you very much. And now we're moving on to business, tourism, heritage, and culture. Councillor Hurdle, and is this one that you wanted to? Okay, so at this point, I'll be looking for one of our ward councillors who would like to read the next motion. I've got Councillor Harlan's finger, and that was enough. I saw it. just want to maybe just start it over just to make sure.
Okay, sorry. Reference number BTHC 230205, and the subject is bylaw number 2301, a bylaw relating to a tourism accommodation levy in the town of St. Andrews, second reading. With the recent changes from local governance reform, the town of St. Andrews must review each bylaw and make revisions based on the new entity. Provided for the council's consideration is bylaw number 23-01, a bylaw relating to a tourism accommodation levy in the town of St. Andrews. The background: bylaw process, first reading February 6, 2023. Public hearing of objections and comments March 6, 2023. Second reading, third and final reading. Based on comments from the public and discussions with council, the bylaw has been updated to reflect the changes noted at the March 20th, 2023 regular council meeting. And the motion is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews grants leave for second reading to bylaw number 23-01, a bylaw relating to a tourism accommodation levy in the Town of St. Andrews. And I so move.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harlan. Could I have a seconder for that motion? I've got Councillor Heenan. We're open for discussion for second reading. Councillor Bennett.
With the amount of traffic that this has been generating with with the tourist accommodation people in the wards, it appears that through no fault of staff in trying to generate information to all the providers in Bayside and Shamcook, it appears that there's been a number of owners or institutions that have been missed. And I think going forward with this right now and including Bayside and Shamcook in this bylaw, I don't think is doing them any justice. I do believe that the TAL is doing a wonderful thing. Explore St. Andrews people are doing marvelous things with what they've got, but at this point, it almost seems like this is being rushed.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Bennett, for your comments. Just on the comments of that, I believe there was a mail out to the entire peninsula on this bylaw to every single household. So the notification to Shamcook Bayside would be the exact same as the notification to the traditional St. Andrews. Is that correct?
Through your worship, that's correct. There were
Okay.
1,500 households, businesses throughout St. Andrews, Bayside, and Shamcook that did receive notification of the bylaw process, and the terms of public hearings of objection.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other comments on that?
If I can, just
Absolutely.
before that carries on, and I don't disagree that you guys did a phenomenal job in sending out packages to everybody involved. However, with the seasonal cottages, the seasonal properties, I strongly suspect that mail is sitting in people's mailbox, not picked up, and a lot of people don't know that this is even happening right now. That's my major concern, is that even though you did everything that you could possibly do to contact people, that the service providers just don't know about it because they're seasonal and aren't at the properties yet.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Any other member of council? Councillor Heenan.
In respect to your point regarding not receiving the mail and it's in a box, it's been my understanding that any property that is a seasonal, they have their mail delivered to their primary residence, because all of the people who are in the United States all get their mail from the town of St. Andrews directly to their home in the United States or wherever they have their primary residence, because the box wouldn't hold it here. So I'm assuming that most of the people would have gotten their notification through that, because I did a double check on that when we did the surveys. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. I'll go to CAO Spear.
Thank you, Worship. In regards, if you saw the newspaper articles over the last couple of weeks, other places are wrestling with that too, and some of the bigger cities won't even do the Airbnbs, but in St. Andrews, it's such a big part of our market that it'd be unfair to some of the other providers, is why we go with it. We take a fairly a gentle approach when it comes to that, so, you know, if we've missed somebody or they've missed their things, we're not going to send out and seal their door shuts. We try to find out, we keep sending out notices and try to get everyone in gentle compliance as best we can. And we've even had some within town that might have taken us more than the year to notice that they hadn't registered yet. So I understand what Councillor Bennett's saying, and it's valid. But just to assure anyone that, we're not like Revenue Canada, will jump in next December, and if we find you, we're going to bill you for the previous 7 or 8 months. We just send people as we find out that they may not be registered. We send them a notice to please register, and to date, we've done that several times with about 100% compliance.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Spear. And it is also important to note that there are some people already in the wards that are optionally paying in, like the Rossmount, I think Shamcook Force Law, or Shamcook Law, what's full name for the B&. But Mr. Menton is already forwarding funds, I believe, to CCRTA. So some of them are already part of the program, but optionally to that point. Any other member of council? Okay, then I will call the question. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? There's one, so we'll note that in the minutes, Councillor Bennett. So we will go to second reading. Give me just a quick sec here. I'll read it by title. This is bylaw number 23-01, a bylaw relating to the tourism accommodation levy in the town of St. Andrews. 1 is title, 2 is definitions, 3 is scheduled amendments, 4 is schedule amendments, 5 is exemptions, 6 is registration of operators, 7 is collection by operators, 8 is report and remittance of levy, 9 is records, 10 is administration, 11 is interest, 12 enforcement, 13 action on arrears, 14 offenses, 15 bylaw repealed, and the effective date, the first reading was actually done on the 6th day of February of 2023, and we have gone to second reading here the 3rd day of April of 2023. Thank you, Council, and we'll be, on the next regular meeting, we'll be bringing for third reading as well. So we'll give a second for Councillor Hurdle to come back, and then we will get into the discussion on the Heritage Board and Heritage Bylaw. Welcome back, Councillor Hurdle. So we are right now at the discussion on Heritage Board and Heritage Bylaw. There is a staff background report on page 75, and I'll pass this over to Mr. Spear or Mr. Knopper, whoever Mr. Spear would prefer to lead this one.
Sorry. Thank you, Council and Your Worship. So we've had several names put forward for the Heritage Board that is before you. As noted in the clerk's report, there's several definitions or several categories that have to be filled. And in order to do that and to get the proper representation that the province requires. So we've been putting people and lining them up, and we have to get a little bit of clarification because there's some positions that may be vacant, but that one person can fill 2 of them. So we just got to look at that. But we just want to see if you want to continue with the Heritage Board, knowing I think we started this process maybe before Christmas to get applications. And so if you'd like to take the next step and appoint them, I would recommend that in the past with the Heritage Board, it's been like-minded individuals that all work together, typically associated with the Civic Trust. This time around, there's a whole bunch of different folks, which is great, provides a lot of diversity, I guess, if you will, a lot of opinions. But where it's a committee that's going to be under fire a lot, for sure, if past history is any indicator, and there will be a lot of opinions. Staff's recommendation is that you might want to form a small committee of council, 1 or 2 people to interview each of the candidates. Just, we know we had the application process, which provided some limited information, but just to ensure that there's a good fit among the whole committee. Not necessary, but is the staff's recommendation to ensure that that in order for this to go forward, that at least there's a common thread among what the beliefs of the people and on what this should look like, and that you'll feel comfortable. Once appointed, then we'd also recommend that we bring down their heritage officer from either Fredericton or the City of St. John, maybe to do an orientation session before they get going, just for them to kind of oriented, I guess that's a double word, but you know what I mean, to learn the process and how to get organized, just to make sure that it's done in the proper steps. And our planner, Mr. Gopin, is good at it, but it's a fairly new process for him, and St. Andrews is, I think about the only municipality in Charlotte County that, at least certainly with the largest inventory of items, that's looking at heritage preservation. So it'd be good to have someone start them out on the right foot, and this person could eventually, as we go through the process, become a heritage officer for a little while till the local RSC gets some experience. It's a requirement to have a heritage officer, and our initial recommendation would be to have someone that's experienced at least overlook the files as they come through and provide advice back to our planners till they feel they've achieved a level of comfort. And so we just need to know what next steps would be if you want to do a ad hoc committee, or if you're happy with who's here and we could just go to a straight appointment at the next meeting. We're just looking for further direction from council.
Thank you very much for that. I think we've had, this is obviously to implement this, it's been tried a few times in the community and it hasn't happened. I think we need to make sure that we're doing due diligence to set ourselves up for the greatest success. This isn't something that it's important, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's urgent. There hasn't been one. So I'd rather take the extra step, and unless someone council feels contrary, to just do almost like mini interviews with the people that have applied, just to make sure that, you know, everybody, you know, is who we need to work together as a group in order to have the greatest chance of success for the community. So it's nothing against the individuals. There's a lot of great background and expertise, but I think having that extra check, we have, and I won't give references, but we have had different committees under council or organizations under council that maybe wasn't the right, and it actually was quite problematic in actually being effective. So I think having that extra step of just having a check-in to find out, you know, simple things about, you know, I know there's reports here in a piece of paper, but why are they getting involved? What do they see it look like, right? To get that extra little bit of step, I think it's important. Does anyone feel kind of contrary to staff's? I actually support their recommendation. Does anyone feel contrary? Councillor Heenan?
Am I allowed to agree?
You can agree.
Your Worship, I hate to say this, but the talk on the street is the heritage bylaw is sort of a joke. Like, people are saying, oh, well, they've tried it like 3 or 4 times. It's not going to work. You know, I mean, I hear this almost every morning of my life. Oh, you're going to try it again. So if we're going to do it, we have to do it correctly, or we don't do it at all. Because if you elect a group of people who get no work done, who do not do their work, it's going to sink in this quicksand. And that's what's going to happen. And I mean, I can attest to that. And so the right fit is absolutely the way we have to go. We can't stymie the community because someone can't agree on something. Like, if you're going to have a heritage board, they have to work like a well-oiled machine, or it's not going to work. And we can't bring something in again and have it say, oh, it failed again. I don't want to be on the council that failed it again. You know, I mean, really. And as I say, everyone laughs about it. Oh, yeah, right. It's going to happen. That's what they say. So I'm behind getting it right, or don't do it at all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your
I
Worship.
appreciate that, Councillor Heenan. Oh, sorry. At this point, it's just a council conversation. There is a question period at the end, though, that you can participate in. But for active debate, it's just the council table. Any other member of council? Councillor Hurdle.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying that, as has already been said, the importance of something like this, and I don't think anyone wants to sort of work against maintaining the feel and look and aesthetic of the community that I think is very important to all of us. What I think I'd like to spend a little more time doing is figuring out. I think there's 3 different types of people with this: people that don't think this is going to work, and there's the people that do think this is going to work. But in those people that think this is going to work, I think that there's also a subset of folks that think a heritage bylaw might be a tool to defend themselves against their neighbors doing stuff they don't like. And that's not what this is going to be. And so I think that if we run too far ahead with it too fast, then people might just think that, okay, well, I don't like this, so I'm going to get the heritage bylaw involved and squash it. And I don't want to see that happening, because that's going to lead to antagonism and no one really being able to move forward. So I think we need to be very clear and informative to the public about what this is going to be for specifically before we possibly even move ahead with it at this point. So I do want to get it going, get it off the ground, but I want to make sure that everybody in the community understands what this is for before we do that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hurdle. And it is important to note that implementing this, if it is successful, is certainly a marathon. It's not going to be a sprint, because once the board is really in place, they are the ones that drive the bus, essentially. So that's why it's important to have the right people on the bus, right? So, the very valid point of what it is and what it isn't. Any other points? But I think I sign off head nods that everyone thinks we should just go through that extra with the candidates, have a conversation with them. We're very appreciative of the people that did raise their hand for the community to get involved. We just want to do that extra step to make sure that we get this right, since it is such a vital and, to Councillor Heenan's point, a challenging task. On that note, I think it's important that staff participates in this, just not council. For the record, I know Mr. Gopin's application might be in this, but he could be a valuable tool as well. Mr. Spears, any thought on who should be on this from a staff perspective? And then I'll be looking for probably 2 councillors. Does that make sense? Or members of council, I should say.
Yes, Your Worship. I guess it's up to council how they'd like to go. I'd recommend 1 staff member, and then maybe 2 councillors. It doesn't have to be, and then work out a fairly succinct type. It's not like a job interview. It's just to come up with a short list of questions to see the spirit of the individual and what they're supporting, and then going down from there.
Perfect.
But if you wish for multiple members,
No, I think
staff would be able to fill it.
I think 1 would be probably suffice unless you see it for more. I wanted to check in, but 1's fine. Council, any volunteers for this particular task of meeting with the people that have applied to be on the Heritage Board? Councillor Hurdle?
Well, I just want to say I would volunteer, but again, with my limitations of my day job and the time that it takes for me to be there, I'm only be available in the evening, and that might not be appropriate for the group. So I just want to say tentative yes.
I think we can make that work, or even
the staff would either come in person, or I think due to the style of this council, we'd probably be okay to do virtual meetings if the potential volunteers are okay with that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, that means you volunteered. Just to be clear, that's in the minutes. Is there another member of council that would like to just go with the candidates? I've got Councillor Harlan, I believe. Is there someone else that raised their hand too? We could have an election right now. All right, Councillor Harlan, did you want to say anything, or are you just good?
No, I would be very interested in participating in that.
Thank you, Councillor Harlan, and you've already raised your hand for a few committees with me. Another one I got you on this week, so I appreciate your willingness to participate, and I know it's in good hands between staff and yourself, so thank you very much. So the next steps would be for you to line those up and then have a follow-up report and recommendations from the 3 members of the committee. Thank you. The next one is the tourism accommodation. Oh. At the end of the council agenda, there will be a question period or comment, so you can certainly at the end of the meeting bring up anything that was pertaining to the budget this evening. So we do it at the end. Otherwise, if people in the public come and every time they want to speak, we wouldn't get through the agenda in the run of a night, unfortunately. Sometimes we have 50 people in the audience that would love to speak on a particular item and enter debate, so that's why it's always at the end of the meeting. A hearing of objections on a bylaw would be an opportunity where we just sit the whole meeting and hear. So there will be an opportunity at the end. Okay, the next one is the tourism accommodation levy for Explore St. Andrews, the approval, and there is a motion for that. So Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is in reference to BTHC 230404, and the subject is the Tourism Accommodation Levy Explore St. Andrews budget approval. The background is as part of bylaw 19-06, a bylaw relating to a tourism accommodation levy in the town of St. Andrews, the service provider must submit to council a budget for approval. A formal presentation was made by their officers at the March 20, 2023 regular council meeting, and at the time, council was able to ask some questions. The 2023 proposed budget is for $327,960, and the action or the motion before us is that the council of town of St. Andrews approves the 2023 budget for the Explore St. Andrews as per bylaw 19-06, a bylaw relating to a tourism accommodation levy in the town of St. Andrews, and I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Hurdle. Seconder for that motion. I've got Councillor Blanchard. Discussion on that one. I will add, just on this one, I think I'll throw it actually over to you, Mr. Spear. There was one outstanding conversation relates to the budget, and I believe it was about the hiring of an employee for Explore St. Andrews. Is there any update or anything you'd like before council?
Sure, it was a council. It came in late, so we put it in with the photocopies as your final page of your packages, I believe, about a request from Explore St. Andrews. So as you remember, Explore St. Andrews was a subcommittee, if you will, of the Chamber of Commerce up until, I guess, the writing of this bylaw, and we're saying to separate it. They haven't had time to get their official bylaws in place. Consequently, they haven't had time to get a business number. So they've made a request that the town of St. Andrews, I guess for lack of a better word, be their bookkeepers over the next few months as they get their things in progress, but that essentially that the Explore St. Andrews would become an advisory committee of the town, but they have special authorization that if you approve their budget tonight, they can spend within their budgetary limits. And that, so on staff, I'd tell the accounting staff to put their budget within our own budget. It wouldn't be separate records or anything, and that to advise them if they go over on anything, but that essentially until they get their formal organization made, that the town help them through the next few months in order to get this done. They've got interviews going on that staff are a part of, and they'd like to be able to get someone on hand, over the next probably 60 days or quicker. They're looking at two options as discussed, that it could be by a contract, so like someone's doing their own little business, or the person could be an employee of the town of St. Andrews, which would be somewhat under our direction, but they'd be getting a lot of their advice from Explore St. Andrews. From a town's perspective, although unusual, it's certainly workable, and to give them the opportunity to hit the floor running, because if you know, they hoped to have hired someone last year, and through various reasons, it never got completed. And so it give them the opportunity to get a person hired and get their feet going before they actually start the summer tourist season that's coming up now in a couple of months, to be honest. And so they're just asking for a little bit of help, of administrative help in the short term. From what I can tell in discussions with them, there isn't a significant amount of volume as far as writing checks and things. It'd be maintaining this employee, which either case is pseudo-automated in our system, and then there'd be grants and stuff, but I'm going to say there's probably between 100 and 150 transactions in total, which is insignificant in the overall realm of things.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. So you're looking, I guess it's within the debate for the actual budget, but it is related to the budget. So you're looking from direction from council on if we are okay with them being within the financials of the town of St. Andrews, or are you looking for them to be an actual employee of the town of St. Andrews, or whatever the preference is of council?
It's actually whatever the preference is of the Explore St. Andrews. Said if the employee or the potential candidate is willing to go on a contract basis, like almost like a consultant, they'd be okay doing it that way. We'd still have to pay them. But if the person wants to get some of the benefits and stuff, that would all be paid for out of Explore St. Andrews' budget, that they could become an employee. Either case is workable. And I guess just to take it a step further, if council agrees to this, we'd probably come up with, for next meeting, some type of formal agreement for council's motion, just so it's in writing and so people understand it. But because it hinges on the acceptance of their budget, we wanted to bring it to you tonight so you're aware of it and kind of where their head is, and that staff supports it, realizing it's an unusual request.
It is an unusual request. Councillor Ware.
Yeah, I could just want to echo what I guess you may have answered my question right at the end, is the legal status of this thing, that there probably should be at least a motion creating a legal relationship between this group and the town.
Yeah, and so initially they'd be treated just like, I guess, like the PAC or any other committee of the town. And then we'd, I guess, appoint the board members individually. I'm not sure. We'll have to think that one through, and then we'd have a written agreement just about what it looks like. So there's a formal understanding. And within their request, they said they'll work towards full independence by the end of this calendar year. Just gives them some time to figure it all out and get the paperwork put through.
It is also noteworthy that the town of St. Andrews is the one that writes the checks. It would be subject to our annual audit, which is a good thing. So I'm good with, you still have to have conversations with them, I guess, to really figure out the direction, but I don't know if someone feels good. I'm fine with staff recommendation. If you want to form agreement, bring it back before council, that works for me. I don't know if anyone sees differently. Yeah. Does that answer it well enough for you? Perfect.
Thank you, Worship. We've got the instruction.
Thank you. So we'll go back to the actual motion now. So we've got a mover and a second, or anything else on the budget, I should say? Okay. All in favor of approving this motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. That's everybody. That motion has been carried. And we are now into Recreation and Community Services with Councillor Gumichel.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Reference number RCS 230410, submitted by myself, March 28th, 2023, and the subject is Request for Support Legion Memorial Banner Program 2023, and the background reads, the Town of St. Andrews has received a request from Randy Justison, President of the Passamaquoddy Branch 8, Royal Canadian Legion, for support of their new Legion Memorial Banner Program. Please see attached request for support email. The Legion is looking to develop 60 memorial banners. Currently, the town has 29 banner poles to help meet the requirements. The Legion is asking the town to sponsor the additional banner brackets, 41 in total. The cost for 10 bracket packs is $380 plus HST, 50 banner brackets, which would cost $1,900 plus HST. Staff have identified that the banner brackets can be purchased from the Civic Promotions budget line, as they can be used for additional banner programs in the future. Staff will work with the Legion to determine the best placement of the new banners based on pole locations and best groupings. It is anticipated that the banners will be installed by the town in October and removed after Remembrance Day, similar to St. Stephen and Eastern Charlotte. And the action or the motion is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the purchase of 50 banner pole brackets at a cost of $1,900 plus HST to support the Passamaquoddy Branch and 8 and Royal Canadian Legion for their memorial banner program to come out of the Civic Promotions budget line item. I'll make that motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gumichel. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Akaji. We're open for discussion at this point. Deputy Mayor Akaji.
Sorry. I think this is a worthwhile project because I think we're the only municipality that doesn't have them, and we should be supporting our Legion members and honoring their memories. Very thankful that the town is doing this, so thank you very much, staff, for all your work that you've done for it, and for the Legion for providing it for the families that have, family members that need to be remembered and honored. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Anyone else? Oh, CAO Spear.
Yeah, sorry, Worship. It just, so people know too, unless it changes, but right now, the Legion will be the ones planning, I think, on collecting the money and doing it. So once the program gets going, we will advertise it, but you'll have to get in contact with a Legion member if you want to support this program and purchase a banner in loving memory of one of your relatives.
Thank you very
Although
much.
we can probably make arrangements for some envelopes at Town Hall or something to help find their way.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Akaji.
Inez Thomas Cooley and Susan Coombs are the two that are running that, and they have put up their emails and addresses as well, but we can probably post that on our site, correct? They are the two that are organizing it.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. And they give a deadline date of May 31st
Thank you,
for this
Deputy
year.
Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship and Council, just a question. We would have enough interest in people buying banners to support this, am I correct? Like, that's all I need to know, is,
By all means.
Yes, because there's, in some families, there's 2 or 3 members that were in the war, so they want to have banners for each one. So there's probably more than 60, but they're going to, try and limit it to the 60 or 70 that we have. We started with the 19, it's not enough. That just does the immediate area, and there's a lot more people to be involved. Thank you very much.
And it is a great program, but it's also important to note that, and it's worthy, don't get me wrong, but town staff, I believe, is the one that has to put up all the banners and take them down for liability reasons. So it is a significant amount of work for town staff as well. So please pass that on to Public Works as well, that if this does be approved, that we do appreciate the extra work. And of course, as mentioned in the motion background, is it's for this particular program, but it's also for any other thing. There could be major events that happen in the community that may choose to take advantage of this program. So depending on it, for this, it doesn't make sense. But if it was for a particular festival or something, there may be a charge in the future for staff's time, just to make sure it's not something that's going up and down every single month, right? So, anyone else? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving this motion, please signify by saying aye. That has been carried, and again, that is great to see. I remember having a conversation 5 or 6 years ago about this very thing. So it is, to Deputy Mayor's point, it is. I would say overdue that we recognize our veterans in our community that have made a number of sacrifices along with their families. The next one is down to Planning and Economic Development, Councillor Heenan, and there is a motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's reference number PED 230414, appointment of building inspector for Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission. The Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission has a new level 1 building inspector, Mr. John Cliff. To ensure that building inspectors are legal to work for the Commission and the Town of St. Andrews, Council has to appoint Mr. Cliff to the role. Mr. Cliff has a strong background in construction and trade industries with the following experience. Started in the construction trade in 1991, licensed journeyman, carpenter certificate Red Seal in 95, certified insulated concrete form foundation installer with Blue Max in 1998, certified in flood and fire restoration in 1998, certified in structural drying and odor control in 1999, owner-operator of insurance restoration company for 20 years, working for Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission at the facilities as the facilities coordinator 2019, been a firefighter since 1998 and currently deputy chief with the Lawrence Station Fire Department. He has taken a refresher course on insulated concrete form foundations, passed all required examinations with the New Brunswick Building Officers Association NBBOA to become a building code qualified official 1, level 1. The motion, Your Worship, is whereas in the Town of St. Andrews has contracted the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission to obtain professional building inspector services. Be it resolved that John Raymond Cliff is a building inspector for the Town of St. Andrews. Be it further resolved that John Raymond Cliff shall remain a building inspector for the Town of St. Andrews so long as he continues to be employed by the Southwest North New Brunswick Service Commission. Be it further resolved that John Raymond Cliff shall remain a building inspector for the Town of St. Andrews so long as the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission remains contracted to provide building inspected services to the Town of St. Andrews. And Your Worship, I so move.
Seconder, please. I've got Councillor Blanchard. Discussion. There's a detailed background included within your report. Okay, all in favor of approving this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye, Your Worship.
And that one has been carried as well. And I believe we're on our last motion of the evening.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. PED 230417, Amendment MP 20-07 to the Municipal Plan MP 20-01, Henry Hansen, PID 013255505. The Town of St. Andrews has received a request for an amendment to the Municipal Plan MP 20-01 from Mr. Henry Hansen to allow for a one-lot subdivision on PID 013255505, Rose Lane. Please see attached staff report from Mr. Alexander Gopin, Senior Planner, for more details and a copy of the proposed amendment. The next steps: public presentation 10 to 14 days after public notice, first reading, public hearing of objections, obtain view of the Planning Advisory Committee, second reading, third reading. Motion that Council of the Town of St. Andrews sets the date of Monday, April the 17th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. during the regular council meeting for public presentation as per Section 25 of the Community Planning Act on Amendment MP 20-07 to the Town of St. Andrews Municipal Plan MP 20-01 for Mr. Henry Hansen, PID CHCO-TV 013-25505, Rose Lane, to remove the portion of the residential growth area designation as shown on the generalized future land use map from PID 013-25505. I so move, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. Seconder? Councillor Bennett? I almost said Blanchard. Sorry, the bees got me. All right, that is on the table now. It is important to note this motion is just to have a public presentation. I do note that Mr. Gopin is on the screen, not in person. Recall 2 weeks ago, I thought he was on the screen and he was here in person. I don't know if we really need a presentation tonight unless a member of council wants it. Otherwise, you will hear it at the public presentation just for an essence of time. Does anybody have any questions, though, for Mr. Gopin at this particular time, or staff for that matter? Okay, so let's proceed then. Call the question. All in favor of taking this to public presentation, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody will be in the public presentation. Thank you very much. That takes us through the agenda of motions. So we are now at question period. So appreciate your patience, Mr. Kelly. So just before we take it in the room, though, if you want to just do a call out for anyone that is on Zoom, if they have any question, raise their hand. We'll switch to the floor here of people that are here, and then we'll come back to anyone that raises their hand on Zoom just for time savings. Mr. Kelly, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Your Worship and councillors. First of all, I'm one of these people that have volunteered for the Heritage Board, and I'm certainly pleased to hear that in principle that there's support for it. But I just wanted to sort of bring this to your attention so you know where we have an opportunity to go with this. I am a college professor, but I'm not going to lecture for 55 minutes here, is that this is really what, I'm saying, heritage is all about. So there's a lot more to it than sitting down and saying, should we have a heritage bylaw? Heritage is now a wealth creator. In other words, and if you look at communities that have actually, all you have to do, we can all take a drive over to Lunenburg, which is officially UNESCO Heritage District town, and it basically has created tremendous wealth for that town. Unfortunately, we weren't in the ballpark at that time to do that. So I just wanted to sort of like let you know that I believe that, and I'm hoping this is going to happen, that this is not just going to be a discussion about what should a heritage bylaw look like and, whatever the kind of is, and can somebody paint their house or not paint their house. This will really be all about how we actually add value to the wealth of St. Andrews, which is really one of Canada's foremost natural heritage communities. So I want to leave that with you, not leave it with you, but it's a starting point to let you know that I think we have a tremendous opportunity in this town, and it's not going to happen in 90 days. We're not going to come back here in September and say, here's the bylaw. It's going to take us a bit of time to do this, but we do have an opportunity for this to be a wealth creator. More good news on this. You don't have to do this. It's not a promotion for it, but I actually wrote a book that Vicki is aware of because we've done chapters in CHCO, and it's about me growing up in a heritage community of St. John. I mean, there's all kinds of chapters on this. And so the Heritage Board in St. John knows who I am, and they are more than, I wouldn't say willing, are interested, in other words, in working, with St. Andrews and actually sharing their expertise with us and, mentoring, coaching, whatever you want to say, and sort of going through that. So I just want to make sure that that we sort of put that point forward, and so that you people are comfortable that, and we'll go through this, I guess, with the board members and with the potential board members, that we have an opportunity to really do something that will be a wealth creator. And if you're looking for money, my goodness, I'm a member of Heritage Canada, and if you get their publications, there is now, not to exaggerate it, but there's all kinds of funding going out there now. In other words, for communities that are heritage communities. There's money for this, there's money for that. We can go through and through and through it. I mean, obviously, these things can be somewhat complicated, but this is not going to necessarily be a cost as such, that St. Andrews is going to become burdened with something. This is going to be an opportunity for us to sort of like take this community to, not a new level, but to add considerable value to a wonderful community that we're living in here. So I just wanted to sort of put that out to you and sort of give you sort of a level of comfort. That's where we're going with that, and I hope we're going with that. We'll see when we have our interviews and we see who all these people are that are going to be on the board. But I'm confident that I think we're going to find that the people on this board more or less are going to have the same attitude that I do. In other words, they're not coming on this board to either be for or against whether we have a bylaw, but to sort of really start to see how we're going to add value to this wonderful community that we're living in. So thank you very much, Your Worship, for the time just to make that statement.
Thank you for your patience, and thank you for raising your hand. We certainly appreciate that. Mr. Cardy, I believe, would also like to speak.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to say thank you very much for considering our application. We recognise it was not perhaps in the best place at the best time, but we wanted to make the point and try and show you what the archives are doing for the town. And I can't let this opportunity go because, as you know, we have strong feelings about what the Common and the courthouse and the jail campus, how that could further enhance the heritage culture of this town. And as you know, there is also a proposal, a way that actually makes some money, saves some money, and get money from other sources if you proceed with this. So with your permission, during this summer, we'll be talking to your consultant, I hope, and with your permission, we may come back to you later in the summer for further discussion. Hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cardy. And I think the consultant meeting absolutely it's a must-do. That isn't an optional thing. We have to meet with you for sure as someone who has been a gatekeeper for it to date. So thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Okay. Anyone raise their hand online?
Yes, Your Worship. Yeah, Brenda Waywood. Now, I note she did send a question in that doesn't address anything on the agenda, but was discussed at the last meeting in regards to the lobster facility in Shamcook. Are you willing to take on that question?
Yes, I think we will. Obviously, council itself has to have a discussion on that and a presentation, but by all means, yeah, I think we should.
Okay. Ms. Waywood, you do have the floor to council. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yep, council can hear you, so provide your question.
Okay, I have an appeal pending with the Assessment and Planning Board against the Southwest, sorry, I'm nervous. The Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission Planning Review and Adjustment Committee. This appeal was launched prior to the amalgamation process. I would like to know if the council is going to be represented at the appeal hearing and if the town planning and advisory committee has formed an opinion on this planned lobster holding facility on St. Andrews North Road.
Thank you very much for the question. I guess I'll reach out to the CAO. We did discuss Mr. Gopin making a presentation to council. Do we have a date set for that? It'll be the next meeting. So to answer your question, at the next regular council meeting, Mr. Gopin will be making a presentation to council, giving council the background. There's various, I guess you could say, levels of awareness on this council. And from there, we're also going to get recommendations on how we can be potentially part of the process should council decide to be. But before we actually form an opinion on that, it's important that all members of council be brought up to speed on the file. So that will be happening at the next regular meeting. And just further, if council does decide that they have an opinion that they would like to share, the question is would it be accepted? Are we actually an interested third party? That is something that we're looking forward to hearing in that presentation as well. At what level of influence, if any, that we will have regarding the file. So it's an active file within council. So I'd really encourage you at the next regular meeting to tune into town council to find out more.
Okay, I do have some concerns there because a lot of the appeals are based on the fact that Mr. Gopin's recommendations to the CRAC committee were not true to the Shamcook planning document. That is, a lot of the appeals are based on him giving false information to the PRAC committee. So if he's giving a presentation to town council, I feel it only fair that members who are appealing should also be allowed to present to town council.
We'll take that under advisement. We could follow up if you give staff your contact information. I will say that in fairness to Mr. Gopin, I have not seen him actually present council in my history with false information. It might be interpretation of what a certain meaning is, but I do have to stand up for staff, extended staff, since he's not able to speak right now, but to say that he's presenting false information, I to be honest, I find that hard to believe. But Mr. Gopin will be here, and there is ward councillors as well that have been very close to the file. Myself, actually, Councillor Bennett sent me the actual recording from the PRAC meeting where the original presentation were. I have heard some of the concerns from residents on that facility, but the council will have opportunities to ask Mr. Gopin, I guess in particular, there was things when it comes to light industrial. What does define light industrial? If you look at the fact that this facility be operating for 24 hours, there is within that even a noise concern that's within light industrial, and at what point is it deemed that it would be. So once we get the presentation, we'll go, but I really would like to give Mr. Gopin the opportunity. And the problem with anything when you go into stuff like this is interpretation. So if there's anything that maybe Mr. Gopin might be disputed is the interpretation of maybe what light industrial is, but I don't believe that he would intentionally ever present any false details. So I just wanted to make that comment. So, but we will follow up.
I agree with you. My wording was probably wrong there.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. So yes, Nick, I would definitely encourage you to tune in to the next council meeting. And it's also important to note that after that presentation, there is a question period. So anyone that has concerns, it's not a hearing of objections, but any questions that you might have, that would be the appropriate time to bring them forward.
Okay, will the Planning Advisory Committee also be considering this matter?
They will not. I do not believe they have any jurisdiction when it comes to the appeal process. I'm just looking to staff to confirm that.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship, that's correct. As this was a PRAC process prior to local governance reform, PAC does not have any authority over that file.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Spear?
Yeah, Your Worship, and just to keep everyone's expectations at a certain level, just understand that because this is going through the appeal process, there's only so far that Mr. Gopin, because at the end it's his work that's being reviewed by the appeals board, so it won't be an open forum because this is still in a legal process.
Fair enough.
As opposed to what the past chair of the PAC used to say, Mr. Fleming, that they weren't a quasi-judicial body. The appeals board is definitely a quasi-judicial body and is usually made up of one or two lawyers. And so there is a very stringent process on that. And so we'll just have to be extremely careful how it's presented at the next meeting, and he'll lay out the facts as is, but won't be able to answer any particular questions at that time just because of where it is.
I can appreciate that. And will he be able to give us guidance on if we do decide that we have an opinion that we'd like to express on how we can be part of the process? Or would that be something that we go through our own legal?
I guess it's best to ask them, but at the end of the day, they provided the opinion that's being appealed. And so if council wants to go for a second opinion, I guess, for lack of a better word, we should find, I would expect we probably have to go find our own legal counsel because, at this point, they have to defend their own work is what the appeal process is.
Perfect. So just for council's awareness on that file, I am going to be looking for direction for you on our opinion as a whole. Thank you. Any other questions? Anything online, submit it via email.
Through Your Worship, I don't have any further questions, and the only question I received was from Ms. Waywood.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Mr. Nopper. We are now into councillors or deputy mayor's comments. Any member of council or deputy mayor wish to comment?
Happy Easter to our constituents.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Akaji. If there's nothing else, I actually have no comments this evening either. So at 8:16 p.m., I'm looking for council, a mover to go into closed session as per Local Governance Act, Section 68(1)J, which is a labor employment matter, including the negotiation of collective agreements. Could I have a mover, please? We've got Councillor Neal and seconded by Councillor Hurdle. All in favor of going to closed session, please signify by saying aye. We are in closed session. We'll give a moment to say thank you to our guests for coming and close down technology. Thank you, CHCO, as always.